Huawei P30 Pro has been tested by DxOMark as one of the best smartphones when it comes to photography. I'm going to test this now in a real-life situation at Lake Geneva and will try all kinds of different settings. I'm now using the wide-angle lens. I'm going to enable Master AI just for a moment to see what it recognizes. Right-hand side you see it recognizes clouds, which is not even half of the picture, so let's disable it. And the next thing I want to do is focusing and metering. So I just touch where I want to have the greatest clarity of the picture. Also, I'm going to the settings and confirm that this is a 20 megapixel resolution on the wide angle lens. And since I mounted the smartphone on a tripod, I can also use the self timer here, and I set it to 5 seconds in order to get a stable vibration-free shot. Now going back, let's focus and meter again, and then let's take the shot on the shutter button on the right hand side, counting down to 5. In the meanwhile, you see it's a 16mm full frame equivalent on that lens, 20 megapixels, aperture f2.2. Looking at the result and the metadata, so this is a 1/100 seconds exposure time, ISO 50, and the aperture f2.2. If we zoom in, we see nicely how the image provides a lot of details. It's actually quite a nice shot. Next, we are switching to the primary lens. The primary lens is a 40 megapixel lens, but I'm using it here at 10 megapixel resolution. Come back to 40 megapixels later. Focusing, metering, and then taking the shot, counting down to 5, or from 5 to 0, I should say, and then looking at the result in a moment. The full frame equivalent focal length here is 27 millimeters. Again, you see the metadata in the upper left-hand side corner. And zooming into the picture from 10 megapixels, I do not expect too much, but the shot looks clean and nice, giving the hazy weather conditions we have here at Lake Geneva. Next scene here will be the telelens. The telelens has 8 megapixels natural resolution, and that looks actually quite nice. The aperture gets closed a little more to 3.4. And the full frame equivalent focal length is 125 millimeters. On the lens, on the primary lens as well as on the telelens, we have optical image stabilization. So let's have a look at the result. Again, I show the metadata here, and actually that looks quite nice. So a 5x optical zoom on a smartphone, I think is really a good add-on for people who want to take photos with their phones. Zooming in, it preserves the clarity, and I think the 8 megapixels do a good job here. Continuing to zoom in, we now switch to the 10x hybrid zoom. So this is the optical 5x zoom combined with some software tweaking. Looks still quite nice. I take the shot now, and when it counted down, we'll look at the result in a moment. The full frame equivalent focal length on the 10x hybrid zoom is 270 millimeters, and you see the metadata here in the picture. When we zoom in, still quite impressive, preserves the clarity, is a nice shot. You can even crop in, although it has only 8 megapixels. We use the primary lens so far only with 10 megapixel resolution, and we want to now switch to 40 megapixels to get the full resolution, which is possible on the primary lens, focusing, metering, taking the shot, and then looking at the final image to see how the resolution pays back. You see the full resolution here in the metadata, 7296 times 5472 pixels. Quite some reserves to crop in and out, and if we do a longer zoom in here, we see now the reserves we get from that high resolution. Very impressive for a smartphone, and I think a very nice result what has been built into that phone here. Next thing I want to try out is pinch to zoom, and if we had 40 megapixel resolution and we go back to the camera, you see actually at the bottom of the screen there are no longer zoom buttons available, so we have to switch back to 10 megapixels resolution in order to get the choices back for the wide angle and the zoom. And now it's here again, you see it, and you can just swipe at the bottom to do a zoom, or you do a pinch to zoom with 2 fingers. So let's first of all focus and meter, then let's zoom in by pressing the soft buttons here. We go up to 10 times resolution, And then we start to play a little bit with that. You see with the gestures here indicated how I zoom in with pinch to zoom. And then of course the picture loses clarity because this is a full digital zoom here. So it's losing clarity, it's losing resolution. A digital zoom never is what people should use if they want to do serious photography. But nevertheless, I want to try out and play with it a little bit. It's hard to get a clean picture, and it's also a little bit shaking forth and back. Also, it's mounted on a tripod here, which I guess has to do with the software. Maybe a firmware update makes this better. Let's go to 40 times, and maybe at 40 times, let's take the shot. Let's focus and meter again. And then I think we should just try to get a shot here and then look at the result later on. So counting down from 5 to 0 for the self timer. And here we go. So here's a result of my tests with pinching to zoom. This corresponds to a full frame equivalent of 656 millimeters. Quite a tailor situation here. If you want to have this on, let's say, a DSLR or DSLM, you need quite to invest in lenses. And still the result looks quite usable. It's nothing I would go for a large print, but it looks okayish, and for a smartphone is super impressive. Concluding the video, it's pretty clear we've never seen such functionality in a smartphone before, and probably other smartphone manufacturers will try to catch up with that situation here. The Huawei P30 Pro in that way is unique in the current snapshot of the market. And I'm quite happy, quite pleased with what I'm seeing here. It's a good development, especially since you have full optical zoom up to 5 times, and also the hybrid zoom at 10 times looks quite nice. So if you like my video, give me a thumbs up, and if you like my channel, please subscribe.